I'm Richard D. Wolff. Tonight, a slice of pizza in Brooklyn set off a national panic inside Trump's America. Luigi's, a 52-year neighborhood shop, taped a handwritten sign to the window. Free slice if Mamdani wins. One line, 10 words. And within hours, right-wing media screamed Venezuela on the Hudson. Then Donald Trump boosted it, declaring, "This is how socialism starts, with free pizza. Let's be adults." This isn't about pizza, it's about fear, weaponized. It's about a political machine that would rather threaten the city than admit people are done being scared on the ground. It looked different. Park Slope after lunch. Nurses, delivery workers, students, a couple of off duty EMTs, all grabbing a plain slice and talking rent, crime, and paychecks that don't stretch. A small, ordinary civic ritual, but Trumpism can't tolerate ordinary. It needs emergency. It needs the word communist to drown out the words healthcare, wages, subway, and housing. So a neighborhood promotion became a national morality play. Choose fear or choose each other. Numbers tell you why the panic was manufactured. In a city of 8, 5 million, 61% ride public transit weekly. 54% say groceries are their top inflation pain. Median rent for a one-bedroom hit $3,250. Overtime for NYPD rose 18% year over year, while classroom aides were cut in 3 districts. That's not ideology, that's household math. And when household math breaks, politics realigns. A free slice isn't a bribe, it's a symbol that someone somewhere remembers community. The machine reads that as a threat because community dulls fear, and fear is the last product it knows how to sell. Trump's escalation, the aid threats, the communist smear is a tell. He built a brand on gold trim and debt leverage, then repackaged austerity as patriotism. Cut taxes at the top, privatize the gains, socialize the losses, then shout law and order when people notice their lives got more precarious. In 2020, he won Staten Island easily. By 2024, his share in the Bronx climbed to 27%. Not because his program helped workers, but because fear traveled faster than facts. Now, a 3, 4 year old immigrant, Muslim, democratic socialist is front running, and the fear machine is overheating. If a city refuses the script, the author calls for censorship. So let's test the claim. Does socialism start with free pizza? No. Social democracy starts when people refuse to be punished for wanting basics: safe streets without impunity, housing without extortion, transport that arrives, pay that buys. The panic is not that pizza is free. The panic is that fear is losing its price premium. When people eat, they talk. When they talk, they compare notes. When they compare notes, they identify the racket: corporate landlords squeezing supply, private equity flipping neighborhoods, lobbyists writing loopholes, and a former president turning federal dollars into a loyalty tax. That's the corruption, not the slice. I've taught generations to follow the money. Follow it here. Real estate PACs flood the airwaves, warning of radical policies, while quietly pushing abatements that cost the city more than any transit pilot could. A billboard claims free buses are fantasy. The same week, bonds are issued to subsidize a luxury tower with 0 units under $2,500. This is not a budget problem. It's a priorities problem dressed in sirens. And when a local business stakes a tiny wager on hope, the empire of fear lashes out because hope is contagious. The line outside Luigi's wasn't long because pizza was cheaper. It was long because dignity was finally on special. Here's what changes if the fear discount expires. Voters start measuring candidates not by how loudly they say crime, but by how clearly they deliver child care, clinics, and coaches in parks. They ask why subsidies for stadiums arrive overnight, but elevators in public housing take years. They notice that the same pundits calling a free slice Venezuela called a $1 trillion corporate tax cut growth. They remember who told them to be grateful for crumbs, and they stop obeying. Trumpism knows that once obedience cracks, it doesn't glue back together. Tonight's story isn't quaint, it is diagnostic. A city famous for its skyline is choosing to look street level again. That is a direct challenge to a politics that survives only from the penthouse down. If the working majority rediscovers that solidarity tastes like something even a hot triangle at noon, then the Gold Leaf Theater loses its audience. The louder the threats, the closer we are to that break. A slice isn't a revolution, but it is a rehearsal, and New York is very good at opening nights. Next, we follow the backlash, how the smear machine manufactures chaos and why corporate media needs the script to stick. The backlash arrived on schedule. By 6 a.m., 4 cable panels were recycling the same chyron. Free pizza equals socialist takeover. A supercut of shaky phone footage, one teenager chanting, one delivery bike on the sidewalk became evidence of urban collapse. The architecture is old. Isolate a frame, strip the context, flood the zone. Add a pundit who hasn't paid a New York rent since the Giuliani years, and you've got outrage merch by noon. Why? Because fear needs inventory and the market was running low. Let's audit the day after Luigi's ad buys spiked. $1.6 million in emergency placement from real estate PACs and 2 public safety groups with overlapping donors. Social engagement surged 19,000 identical comments across 300 pages in 3 hours. Classic bot scatter, a memo leaked from a lobbying shop, packaged talking points, free slices equal lawlessness, transit pilots equal bankruptcy, taxing vacant luxury units equals expropriation, none of it penciled out. Crime complaints were down 4.2% month over month. Transit delays were up 7% because maintenance crews were short-staffed after a hiring freeze. The story wasn't chaos. The story was austerity. But austerity doesn't sell ads. Panic does. Now watch the two-step. First, police union reps go on air to warn that anti-cop radicals will hand the city to criminals. In the next segment, a developer praises market discipline, then defends tax breaks that cover his interest costs. Meanwhile, classroom paraprofessionals get pink slips and the park's budget loses weekend staffing. This is how the fear economy works. Subsidize the top, securitize the middle, scapegoat the bottom. Then call the whole thing fiscal responsibility. Trump perfected the branding spray gold on the bill for everyone else. When he threatens to yank federal aid if New York elects a Democratic socialist, it's not policy, it's protection racketeering in a red tie. New Yorkers aren't stupid. They track their own ledgers. Grocery prices up double digits from 2021. Child care slots waitlisted. Section 8 applications frozen. 1 in 8 households food insecure last quarter. Meanwhile, luxury vacancy sits near 12% while shelters overflow. Ask a nurse on a late shift whether free buses are utopian or simply efficient when hospital parking is impossible and wages lag behind rent by $1,000 a month. Ask a bodega owner in Jamaica how many deliveries he misses because the A train stalls and his driver can't afford a car. Then ask why the same commentators who call a fair holiday irresponsible cheered a stadium subsidy bigger than the annual parks budget. It's not accidental. It's a class preference disguised as arithmetic. The smear machine needs a villain, so it invents one. Mamdani will defund police, empty prisons, freeze rents, and tax billionaires until they flee. Notice the sequencing. Start with fear of crime, pivot to fear of change, end with fear of capital flight. I've taught this for decades. Capital flight is the tantrum of those who enjoyed tax-funded infrastructure and now resent being asked to pay the bill. The cure isn't begging, it's rules. Close loopholes, claw back abatements for projects that missed affordable targets, implement vacancy taxes on pied-à-terres used 19 days a year, and reinvest in the very systems that make cities productive. That's not radical, that's maintenance. But maintenance doesn't trend. So we get spectacle. A governor in exile rebranded as adult in the room, a tough on crime mascot with no path to 50%, and a chorus warning the city will turn into Venezuela because a pizza shop comped slices for a night. Consider the numbers they don't read on air. $2, $4 billion in foregone revenue from property tax abatements last year, $900 million in overtime overruns, $0 for a pilot of free buses on 3 lines that would cut commute times and boost small business receipts on corridors that actually need foot traffic. Free pizza is not the scandal. Free money for the already fortified is. So yes, the backlash is loud. It always is when fear feels its margin thinning. But listen underneath. The EMTs, the teachers, the night shift cleaners, the line cooks. These are the people forming the new coalition, not for slogans, but for services. Their ask is basic: make the city usable again. Keep kids fed, keep trains reliable, keep rents from swallowing wages, keep billionaires from treating public budgets like valet parking. If that's socialism, then the only thing that changed is the label on common sense. The point of a sign at Luigi's was never to buy votes. It was to remind a neighborhood that solidarity still has a taste, that generosity can be policy, not charity. The reason Trump and his media surrogates pounced is the same reason they always do. Once people feel abundance, even a tiny one, they start asking why it was rationed in the first place. That question is lethal to the fear business model, which is why the next move will be harsher. Threats of capital strikes, lawsuits to freeze budgets, algorithmic smears targeting immigrant communities. We'll name those tactics, price them, and show how to beat them with math, not myths. By Friday, the scare campaign left cable and moved into code. Payment processors reviewed donations to transit equity groups. A cloud vendor paused a city contract over reputational risk. A hedge fund circulated a client note, rotate out of NYC Q4, and local TV read it as scripture. This is the capital strike in 2025. Soft boycotts, compliance theater, algorithmic throttling. Nothing on paper, everything in practice. The goal is exhaustion. Make ordinary people conclude reform is impossible, so the old rents keep compounding. Let's strip it to ledger lines. New York forfeited $2.4 billion last year through property tax abatements and bespoke carve-outs. Vacancy in luxury inventory hovered near 12%. Shelter costs soared 19%. Overtime overruns hit $900 million. Meanwhile, a 3-line free bus pilot would cost under $180 million and return an estimated $420 million in corridor spending and productivity gains, shorter commutes, more reliable staffing, fewer no-shows. That's a 2.3x social return. We ran models across 7 routes. The data isn't radical. It's transit economics 101. The reason it sounds radical on TV is because someone needs the panic to drown the arithmetic. They changed the subject. Again, what about crime? Fine. NYPD incidents down 4.2% month over month. Certain categories up in 2 precincts starved of social workers and youth staff. after austerity trims. That's the tell, cut the right workers, then point to the resulting instability as proof you should never fund them. It's the arsonist cycle. Light the budget on fire, sell more alarms, blame the neighbors. Trump did it nationally, tax cuts at the top, deficits as a pretext, slash social goods, then pitch private solutions at double the cost. He calls it strength. I call it the oldest Wall Street trade. Privatized gains, socialized losses, wrap in a flag. Back at Luigi's, the line became a message queue. A CNA in Scrubs. My commute is 94 minutes. Make buses free and reliable. I'll give you 3 hours a week back in care. A school paraprofessional. We lost AIDS. Kids paid for a billionaire's abatement. A bodega owner in Jamaica, A-train delays cost me $600 last week. Multiply that by 40,000 small businesses, and you have the real crime, time theft from the working class. Funny how that never gets a prime time chyron. The backlash tried a new scare. Investors will flee. Let them perform. Capital owes us receipts. You enjoyed tax-funded infrastructure, police details for your towers, bespoke zoning that juiced your rents. You do not get to threaten democracy for asking you to pay the bill. The counter is not groveling. It's law. Sunset abatements that missed affordable targets, institute a high vacancy surcharge on units dark 300 nights a year, create a clawback on subsidy recipients that offshore payroll within 24 months, end NDAs on public money. If that's socialism, then maintenance is Marxist and pothole repair is a 5-year plan. And the Venezuela trope, spare me. New York is not collapsing because a pizza shop comped slices for hope. It is stressed because private equity ate housing like a buyout, because procurement was captured, because austerity moved from emergency to ideology. Trump's role is to brand that ideology as patriotism, to tell a working EMT that her city's insolvency starts with a free bus and ends with gulags, when the reality starts with carried interest and ends with her sleeping in her car between shifts. That's the cruelty. Moral panic at retail, extraction at scale. There is another number you won't see on the crawl. 63% of likely voters under 35 inches are pullback taxing vacant luxury units. 58% support a narrow fare holiday on the worst performing bus lines. 71% want clawbacks on non-compliant developers. That's a governing coalition, not a hashtag. But coalitions need stamina. The fear merchants are betting on fatigue. They will spam immigrant WhatsApp groups with deep fakes. They will launder talking points through concerned Democrats. They will turn solidarity into chaos with one cropped frame. Do not blink. Document everything. Price every scare. Put the budget on screen and narrate like a sports broadcast until viewers can see the play before it happens. A city is a balance sheet of values. Every line item says who counts and who waits. Right now, the working majority is done waiting. They know a free slice is not a revolution, but they also know the opposite of a revolution is not order, it's stagnation with better lighting. The choice in this election is not left versus right, it's scarcity theater versus abundance planning. If New York picks abundance, Trump's threats will escalate. Good. We finally flushed the terms into the open. Next, we map the pressure points, the agencies, the contracts, the legal chokeholds, and we show how a democratic city can govern through a capital tantrum and win. By Monday, Wall Street had joined the chorus. CNBC ran a segment titled The Coming Exodus. Can New York survive a socialist mayor? A familiar script, graphs tinted red, footage of shuttered stores, a suited analyst warning that investor confidence is fragile. They never mention who fragilized it, who hollowed it out over decades of tax holidays, deregulation, and bailouts so large they could buy every slice of pizza in Brooklyn for the next century. When I teach crises, I remind students capital doesn't flee, it negotiates. The threats are opening bids. In 2020, the same funds threatening flight quietly bought city bonds at a discount. By 2023, those bonds yielded double the inflation rate. Now they pretend fear. It's theater to protect margins. But the drama lands because average people still remember what happens when powerful men whisper recession. They pay every time. Trump, meanwhile, weaponized the segment. His Truth Social post: New York is dying again. Radical Islamo-socialists giving away pizza while good Americans pay the price. Sad. The echo chambers ignited. Venezuela trended again. A congressman proposed a federal inquiry into municipal radicalism. A billionaire donor tweeted that urban decay is what happens when you reward laziness, yet the data refused to play along. New small business registrations up 8%. Vacancy down in mixed income districts. Transit ridership recovering faster than forecast. The supposed collapse looked a lot like resilience, but Trumpism can't digest resilience. It feeds on despair. That's why it keeps importing crises, migrants, inflation, crime, anything but the one crisis that counts: inequality. A third of New Yorkers spend half their income on rent. 2 million are one medical bill away from debt. Those numbers are bipartisan. They are the quiet arithmetic of empire decay. And that's why the pizza panic mattered. It punctured the silence. Inside Luigi's, the owner, Giovanni Lanzo, refused to take the sign down despite online harassment. He told a reporter, "My father opened this place 52 years ago. We gave slices to cops, to kids, to broke students. Now they call that socialism. Maybe kindness is socialism then." That quote traveled faster than Trump's insults. It became a rally line across boroughs, a meme in union chats, a sticker on food trucks. Maybe kindness is socialism. You could almost feel the narrative shifting from accusation to confession. If compassion now equals socialism, then America's moral compass has been privatized. The capital tantrum escalated. Two banks froze. Community lending pending policy clarity. The Chamber of Commerce warned of reputational risk. The stock tickers dipped 0.6% intraday, then bounced. Nothing collapsed, except the illusion that fear still dictated markets, because while pundits raged, workers adapted. Cafes added solidarity discounts. Subway buskers rewrote songs about free buses. Organizers filled union halls again. The very energy Trump mocked as chaos became competence. Here's the deeper irony. Trump built his legend in this city. The skyline was his mirror. But now that mirror reflects him as the obstruction, not the builder. When he threatens New York, he threatens the brand he sold, the world ambition, diversity, survival. And New York, in return, does what it always does. It commodifies the insult. By nightfall, vendors on Canal Street were selling socialism starts with pizza shirts for $15. This is how fear loses power. It becomes a joke. Once laughter enters, the spell breaks. The right's greatest fear isn't socialism, it's irrelevance. A working class joke at their expense is the ultimate market correction. The panic merchants can't trade that. And so the story moves. The threats multiply, the data stabilizes, and one slice of pizza sits between two possible futures. A nation so scared of fairness it starves itself, or a city bold enough to feed each other again. Which one prevails will depend on whether solidarity scales faster than cynicism. Because if kindness truly is socialism, then maybe, just maybe, America's redemption starts at the counter of a Brooklyn pizzeria. Next, we trace how that counter became a campaign and how Trump's own fear machine accidentally turned Luigi's into a global symbol of rebellion. By midweek, the counter at Luigi's had become a command center. Not romantic, practical, a QR taped to the tip jar linked to a map of bus corridors most choked by delays. Another linked to a petition for a vacancy surcharge on luxury units sitting dark 300 nights a year. A third sent volunteers to translate policy explainers into Spanish, Bengali, Arabic, Russian, Cantonese. The meme, maybe kindness is socialism, mutated into infrastructure, pop-up legal clinics for tenants, sign-ups for fare inspectors, retrained as service ambassadors, church basements hosting after-school meals so parents on late shifts could breathe. This is how ideas outrun insults. Logistics beats slogans. The numbers followed. Small dollar donations to transit equity coalitions jumped 280% in 72 hours. Average gift, $13.42. Volunteer signups crossed 9,000. A flash poll of likely voters under 35 showed 64% support for a three-line fair holiday, 61% for a high vacancy tax, 58% for clawbacks on non-compliant developers, 55% for redirecting police overtime overruns to youth services and mental health responders. These aren't radical demands. They are maintenance with receipts, and that is precisely why Trump and his surrogates redoubled the smear. If ordinary fixes look workable, panic loses its premium. Trump's next move revealed the ceiling of his politics. Another post, another threat, cut federal funds, investigate municipal radicalism, punish sanctuary policies. The aim was to make New York flinch. It didn't. Clergy formed a public coalition sanctuary. Is not negotiable. Hospital administrators published wait time data free buses would shave 11 to 19 minutes off nurse commutes on 3 lines. A joint letter from small businesses in Jamaica, Astoria, and the South Bronx quantified time theft from unreliable transit at $47 million a quarter. For once, the city spoke in the only language the fear machine respects: cost. Does this mean a single election fixes a 40-year drift? No, it means the drift is visible. Austerity was never neutral. It was a transfer from public goods to private margins, from predictable services to precarious lives. Trump turned that transfer into a brand: gold for some, grit for most, then sold the receipts as patriotism. The Luigi's moment stripped the veneer. If communism now means a nurse getting home before midnight, a student riding free to a second job, a tenant not evicted because an investment unit stayed empty all year, then the word has lost its spell. That's why they shout it louder. The volume is a confession. Here is the program they fear, stated plainly. End abatements that miss affordable targets. Institute a high vacancy surcharge. Pilot fare holidays on the system's worst performing bus lines, and measure results publicly. Cap overtime bloat and reinvest in social workers, youth teams, and mental health responders. Audit procurement and ban NDAs on public funds. Build worker co-ops into city contracting. Require subsidy clawbacks when firms offshore payroll within 2 years. Price every step. Publish every contract. Put the budget on television like a ball game and teach people to read it. That's not ideology. That's democracy with a calculator. And if capital tantrums, let it. Capital negotiated before it threatened. It will negotiate after it fails to scare. In 2020, it whispered recession while buying the dip. In 2025, it whispers Venezuela while underwriting bonds in the next tab. The answer is not bravado, it's governance. Write rules that favor the many and document the savings until even the pundits who prefer panic have to read the ledger on air. The day fear can't set the price of policy is the day politics becomes useful again. So no, a slice of pizza didn't topple an empire. It toppled an illusion. That austerity is inevitable and solidarity is a joke. A neighborhood said otherwise, and the city listened. The world is watching because New York still teaches. It teaches how a working majority can outvote a fear cartel. It teaches that courage is cheaper than panic and yields better returns. And it teaches, finally, that the opposite of Trumpism isn't a party, it's a practice. Feed each other, fund what works, tax what doesn't, and refuse to obey a politics that only functions when you're hungry. I'm Richard D. Wolff. If kindness is socialism, then consider this your quarterly report. The numbers are in. The fear premium is falling. Keep the pressure, keep the receipts, and keep the ovens hot.